bringing you the Big Book tag, which was created by One Book, One Review, and I thought I'd do it because I like all my big books, because I have so many big books. And yeah, let's just get started because some of these are enormous and I want to talk about how big they are. So the biggest book I've actually finished is, unsurprisingly, A Storm of Swords by George R.R. Martin. This edition clocks in at 1,179 pages, and it's an enormous book. I could actually include all of the Game of Thrones books because they are actually 4 of the biggest books I've ever read. The 5th one will be the one I'll show you next. But I'm going to only include this one and just say they're all enormous. We all know they're enormous. But this edition is 1,179 pages. The second biggest book I own that isn't a Game of Thrones related is Inheritance by Christopher Paolini. This hardback comes in at 849 pages according to Goodreads. And I remember reading this when it first came out and it's just so big. It was so daunting. For ages this was the biggest book I had read, but I've surpassed it now. But I have a lot of fond memories related to this series, even though they are all enormous. Next up we have one that actually surprised me. I didn't realise it was that long, but The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson comes in at 781 pages, which, like, I can see it's 700 pages, but like, I didn't even realise it was that long when I was reading it. The whole trilogy are all like 500 pages plus. I think they were actually above 600. But the second one actually is my least favourite of the trilogy, and it's the longest. So that is not a correlation, I promise. But yes, The Well of Ascension comes in at 781 pages. And of course, it's a Brandon Sanderson book, because I love Brandon Sanderson and Samara Sanderson and beautiful covers, so. After that, we rather unsurprisingly have Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling, because this edition is 766 pages according to Goodreads, and for ages this was the biggest book I'd read until I read Inheritance. So this was the biggest book I read from when this came out. I remember reading this in year 3, so that would be 2003, 2004, and I read Inheritance when it came out, which was what, 2010, 11? So this was the biggest book I read for about 5-6 years. And it's Harry Potter, so it has a special place in my heart, obviously. Then I do actually have one here, but it's in the shed, and that's Breaking Dawn, but we'll skip that. After that, the next biggest book I have read is City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare. This edition comes in at 733 pages. There are actually a couple above this, but they are Brisinga and The Hero of Ages, so I'm not going to include them because I don't want to duplicate. So City of Heavenly Fire, the last book in the Mortal Instruments, is 700 pages long. That doesn't surprise me. It's a behemoth. Look at it. Look at this blobby paperback. But I adored this book. I love this series. And yeah. Big book. Now, unlike the original tag, I want to include one here that I am currently reading that is 1,118 pages long, and that is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, book 1 in the Stormlight Archive. This book, I am currently on page 499, so I have got a fair way to go, but I am a reasonable chunk through. But this is the first book in the Stormlight Archive, and when I've read this, this will immediately be the second biggest book I've ever read. So yeah, I'm quite excited to finish it, so I thought I'd mention this one, and then we'll move on to the other two that are really big books that I need to read. Both of these are kind of cheats, so I may throw in a third, but these are both, well, this one was originally published as 1 volume, and it's very well known. Okay, so this one comes in at 1,008 pages, and that is The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. This enormous book is 1,000 pages long, and there's loads of appendices that I'm not counting because I don't ever count the appendices. So I have this one to read, and I got this very recently, so I'm not too worried. I have actually read The Fellowship of the Ring in the separate edition. But my problem with this is obviously most people regard this as a trilogy, but it's technically a standalone. But I don't know if this is just a trilogy bind up, or is it a book? Who knows? So originally it was a book, but most people regard it as a trilogy. What do we do? But The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is a trilogy bind-up, and that is His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. This is a bind-up including all 3 books in the trilogy, The Northern Lights, The Amber Spyglass, and The Subtle Knife. So this one is 1,008 pages. So I'm not. I could count this but it is a trilogy bind-up. So technically it is 3 books in one. But that is enormous. I know. And there is also, I could do an honorary mention to the Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. That is over 900 pages long. And then I have the first one in that. It's like 700. I have so many big books to read. I've got the Rhaeria Revelation series. They're all enormous books. So many books to read, but all of them are quite big. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. It was just me wanting to talk about some big books that I've read and that I enjoyed and haven't read and want to read. And yes, let's go. Thank you for watching. I will have another video up soon. Goodbye.